Hi everyone, my name is Steph, this is the Novelty Corner, and welcome back to my channel. Welcome to another Last 5 video, this time where I'm talking about the last 5 audiobooks that I have read. I've definitely upped my audiobook quota this year, which is amazing, and the first book that I'm going to mention is The Universe in a Nutshell by Stephen Hawking. I've not actually read any books published by Stephen Hawking before, and this one I found while I was scrolling through Libby. It's not overly long, it is narrated by Simon Preble, and it is quite literally Stephen Hawking talking about the universe, some of his research, some of the history of the study of the stars and astronomy, and I love that kind of thing. It's the kind of non-fiction audiobooks I love to put on. In fact, I have recently read one that's not in this actual wrap-up, but every time I find a new sort of space-related non-fiction audiobook, I always try and give it a shot because space was my first love. I did have grand dreams of becoming an astrophysicist back in the day, and that all blew up when I realized maths and science are not my thing. I totally appreciate women in STEM. I am not ever going to be one of them. That is not my forte, but I still love learning about all of that. And even when I go back over topics that I have read about, I've read about before, I've learned about before, I still love coming back to it because it just feels really cool. So basically it's a book about theoretical physics in layman's terms, and I deeply appreciate that because it was actually very easy to understand. It is a little bit of an older title now, obviously, so there is more up-to-date research and things like that. But for a beginner kind of book where you want something in very easy to understand language, it's probably a good one to check out. Then from NetGalley, I had an audio arc of It Had to Be Him by Adib Khoram. This one was narrated by Corvin King and Vicus Adam. Sorry, I just had to double check. This one I found it really hard to go back and find the information about the audiobook because it's not on Audible. I think it is out though, but I've got to double check the dates. If it's not out, I'll put the date on screen. This book is about Ramin and Noah. So we start off with Ramin's perspective, and he is about to propose to his boyfriend, and then his boyfriend breaks up with him and is basically told that the relationship is boring and that the boyfriend is looking for more. And Ramin is like deeply affected by sort of this conversation, and he ends up deciding to just do something spontaneous, and he goes on a trip to Italy. Noah is separated from his wife and they have a son, and his wife's family is originally from Italy, and they've gone on a family trip there because his ex-wife is thinking that she's going to move home and help run the family business in Italy, and is potentially going to take their son with her. And so it's a family holiday to kind of see what's going on and to sort of get everyone acclimatized to the idea. As it turns out, Ramin and Noah went to high school together, and they happen to run into each other in Italy, of all places, and they reconnect, they get to know one another, and they get to realize that they're both queer and they're both interested in one another, even though they would never believe that the other person is interested in them. And as they're spending time in Italy, they're spending time developing this relationship and seeing how it goes. It's really the story of two men who are rediscovering themselves at a different point in their life and understanding what it is that they actually want, especially Noah, who has done all of that stay-at-home dad kind of stuff. He's very protective of his son. He has built his entire sort of adult life around being a dad, and part of the reason why his ex-wife, who he has a good relationship with, is thinking about moving with their son to Italy is so that Noah can actually live his life, because he hasn't been able to do that. But the conversation is far more nuanced than I'm able to communicate it. It is a very nuanced conversation. I will say there is a lot of body image discussion in this book, particularly on Ramin's part, because he has been very insecure in the past. But the story was really great. The narrators were fantastic. I really enjoyed this one. It was a great queer romance. Another audio arc that I had from NetGalley was Thrown for a Loop by Sarina Bowen. This one was narrated by Brooke Bloomingdale and Ryan Hudson. We're following Zoe and Chase. Chase is a professional hockey player. He is playing with a team. He's not performing at his absolute best at the moment. Zoe has recently been hired as a skating coach for his team. And as it turns out, the two of them know each other from way back in the day. They were both working at a skating camp over a summer. Zoe was a former figure skating Olympian. She has medals, and then her career kind of imploded a little bit. And she has reinvented herself as a skating coach. She's really happy about it. She's really looking forward to this chance for working with the team. However, she knows that Chase is going to have an issue with her being there because they were seeing one another while they were at this camp. Their relationship imploded, and it has everything to do with her mother and a few other bits and pieces that were happening at the camp. And so she and Chase never spoke after everything imploded, and she feels like this is a source of conflict. However, she's really good at her job, and she slowly begins to bring other players around to her approach. She's able to help them, and that gets more people on board. And she's only on a contract, and she wants to end up with a permanent position eventually. And one of the things that she's able to do is she's able to figure out why Chase isn't performing at the level that he normally does. This sparks some interest from particularly the media surrounding all of this because someone discovers a video of Zoe and Chase figure skating together back at this summer camp, because Chase learned how to figure skate. His mother was a figure skating teacher at one point, and one of the sort of driving factors for bringing them back together in this particular story is that the hockey team catches wind of this and they decide that for one of their fundraising events they're going to have Zoe and Chase pairs skate together as sort of a draw card for getting people in. And so they have to train together again, and they really have to unpack their previous relationship and what happened. I won't say that it's my favorite Sarina Bowen story, but it was definitely enjoyable, especially the second half of the book. Like once we start moving out of the really early days of their relationship, because we get a bit of a past present timeline storytelling style, but once we get into sort of the meat of the story in the current day and them actually unpacking what happened, that felt far more engaging. But the narrators for this also excellent. And then the last two books are books in a duology. It is One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns by Rachel Gillig. These books were narrated by Lisa Cordileone, and she was phenomenal in this. This is a fantasy romance series. We're following Elspeth Spindle, who has an ancient spirit trapped in her head. She lives in a world that has lots and lots of rules and a magic system that is really unique in that their magic is aligned with these cards that all have different meanings, and if you utilize the cards, they have different impacts on your life for both positive and negative reasons. And the spirit trapped in her head is called, well, she calls it the nightmare. He has been inside her head since she was a child. She got sick, which is one of the signs of magic, and she survived because he kept her safe, and he is able to help her see the magic of these cards, so she can tell if someone is holding a card and which card it is, which is a huge advantage. And then one day she is stopped by highwaymen and kidnapped by them and begins to learn the price for her magic. She is caught up in a lot of court politics and this ongoing quest to save Blunder, which is the kingdom, from its own dark magic. We meet a lot of really cool characters in here. So we have Raven, who is Elspeth's love interest and is a member of the guard of Blunder, and he also has a specific type of magic and a tie to the history of Blunder's magic. My favorite relationship though, in which mostly takes place in Two Twisted Crowns, is Ione and Elm. Elm is like the spare heir to the throne, and Ione is Elspeth's friend who has taken magic and is trying to use it to her own benefit in a really interesting way. In book one, you believe that she's kind of gone over to the dark side, but you work out pretty quickly that she's a very intelligent woman and she has done things that she needs to do in order to survive. Hands down, the Nightmare is my favorite character in the entire series and has just the creepiest head voice. Like Lisa Cordileone does a fantastic job with the Nightmare, who is just this weird, creepy presence who is basically directing the plot of everything. And it takes a little while for people to catch up and realize exactly what's going on with the Nightmare. And I loved it. Like, it was fantastic. I can't recommend the two books enough. So much so that before I even finished reading both of them, I bought the special editions of them because I would like to go back and reread them and annotate the books, because it was really fun. It's all down to Heather and Robin that I read these books, because I know they are definitely a high favorite of Heather's, and she's been talking about them for ages, and I ended up just deciding on a whim because one of the books came in as a hold on Libby, and also I needed it for a challenge, and it happened to work for it. So I read the first book and then got immediately sucked in and read both books in the same week, right in time for Heather's live show. And those, my friends, are the last 5 audiobooks that I have read. In the comments, I'd love to know, have you read any of them? Are you planning on picking any of them up, or do you have recommendations for titles that are similar? Feel free to leave them down below. If you just want to let me know that you're here but you don't leave a comment, feel free to leave headphone emojis. I hope that wherever you're in the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I'll see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye everyone.